Hello, everybody, and welcome to Spectrum Sessions, the podcast where we platform unfiltered autistic voices and celebrate our differences. I'm Heather from the National Autistic Society Scotland, and today I'm here with Katie Forbes. Katie, could you please introduce yourself to anyone who doesn't know who you are?
Of course, thanks for having me, Heather. My name is Katie and I'm from Aberdeen, and I am an autistic trainer, speaker, and founder of Autistic Flair, a community-driven organisation that amplifies autistic voices to inspire change and build understanding. Although my autism was identified in childhood, I only accepted and embraced my autistic identity in my mid-20s. I grew up feeling ashamed of being autistic due to misinformation and negative stereotypes of autism portrayed in the media and popular culture at the time. This led me to masking my autistic traits for years. It wasn't until experiencing autistic burnout and hitting rock bottom did I realize I couldn't keep up this persona. I couldn't keep up this masking. So I decided to stop running away from my autistic identity and instead explore it. I found strength in the online autistic community who helped me realize there was nothing to be ashamed about. And that's how Autistic Flair came about. I wanted to help other people who, like me, had struggled to come to terms with their autistic identity. On social media, we've created this really nice safe space where people can explore what it means to be autistic. Our autism is celebrated. We validate our feelings and experiences and can connect with like-minded people. And yeah, that's why I'm so passionate about talking about autism and kind of trying to break down the stigma.
As you were saying, you were first identified as autistic at the age of 11. Compared to me, I was diagnosed only a couple of years ago, and it came as a huge relief to me, but I imagine for you it would have been entirely different. Would you mind telling us a bit about your diagnosis journey?
Yeah, totally. It was quite different. So it was first identified when I was 11, as you'd said, but the doctors that identified it actually convinced my parents not to get me formally diagnosed at that point because they said that they thought this label would hold me back in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so my parents, wow, they took the professionals' advice, and then when they also went to look up like autism by googling it, or if they could think back to any reference of autism they had read or saw about it, all being like really negative stereotypes in like film and television. And when they looked up like articles on autism, again, it was all about trying to fix autism or how you can try and cure it or how the vaccines have made us autistic. And so with only that information at the time, they thought the best thing for my daughter is to not tell her that she's autistic, and I guess we can help her like learn to be normal, which as I'm sure you can appreciate and many others can appreciate, it's that's not healthy, and that's not the best way to support autistic people. But I did, so I tried to mask my autism for years and tried to fit in, but ultimately this just led to me feeling worse and worse about myself because I couldn't be like a neurotypical person because that's not how my brain is made up. And so I was dealing with a lot of mental illness throughout my teens. And then thankfully we found a doctor when I was 18 who thought it was a positive thing to get me formally diagnosed as autistic. So I finally received that formal diagnosis at 18, but still, because this had been hidden from me my whole life, it felt like it was this shameful part of me, and it was something that I should try to fix. I had this still in my head. So it wasn't until that I like hit my rock bottom in my mid-20s did I finally realised that it wasn't healthy to mask my autism, and if I wanted to get better and to be happy, and I was going to have to accept who I truly was. And thankfully, yeah, I feel very positive about my autism now, but that wasn't always the case.
Yeah, it's the same for a lot of autistic people, of course. It's a journey to come to accept who you are, and it does take a lot of time to get there.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
yeah. So I watched your TED Talk, which was amazing, by the way. I really enjoyed it.
Oh,
And in your TED Talk, you said that the only way to survive was to be like everyone else. And this was in reference to being at school. Could you talk a bit more about your school experiences as an autistic young person?
yeah. I didn't like school. I
Me
actually
neither.
ended up yeah. I think a lot of people are in the same boat. I actually left school at 15 because so I'm also dyslexic
Mm,
and dysgraphic. So um I found it really hard, not just the learning, but also like the socialization, being around kids who can be really mean. And so yeah, I faced a lot of bullying and due to my dyslexia and school not making a lot of effort to support my needs, I really struggled. And it's like when I think back to when I was 11 and that doctor identified that I was autistic, and she thought it was best for me not to get a formal diagnosis because she thought this label would hold me back. I don't think she realized, okay, I didn't have the autism label, as she put it, but I got other labels instead. I was
mhm,
called the R word, I was labeled weird and so a lot of other horrible names. And that just alienated me, I guess, from the rest of my peers. And if I had been told, oh, you're autistic, and that is why you perhaps don't fit in with some of the people in your class, and from a young age, if I had been told just a different way of being, and there's nothing shameful about that, I think I would have felt a lot differently, and I would have got the support I needed, and I would have grown up feeling a lot better about myself and how my brain works. So yes, I look back and I wish things had been different. And I can't change that. But what I can change is perhaps how other people view their autism. And that's why I talk so much about it
mhm.
online. And I'm sure, I wonder, is that perhaps why you wanted to work for the National Autistic Society?
Yeah, I just wanting to like raise awareness and stuff. I was really keen to work for NAS, especially with like my experiences growing up. I definitely share the sort of thing about wanting to get diagnosed younger and
Hmm.
like what life would have been like and how it would have been different. I was mute for like 4 years in high school, and yet I was not diagnosed. So it's kind of like I just don't. It just doesn't make sense. I think it would have been completely different for both of us if we had that diagnosis at a younger age. So I think with
Possibly.
NAS, it's just about campaigning, making sure people are more aware and can detect if someone's autistic and sort of try and like flag that with people, especially in schools.
Yeah, totally. I find it I know you're supposed to be interviewing me, but I'm just fascinated by that. So, what did healthcare professionals or teachers think that you were non-speaking for years?
They just thought I was like really quiet. And since I
Okay.
wasn't causing any problems, they didn't
Ah,
like flag anything. I was mute socially, but then if a teacher's asking me something, I could answer it. But then like socially, I was just completely mute, so they kind of didn't see that element as much. If
got
that makes
you.
more sense. All my report cards is like very, very quiet. She needs to like speak more in class, but then like and academically she's fine. Like all this, so they didn't raise any concerns. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, it was just strange looking back. How was that not picked up on? You know.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So I did speak, but All my report cards also said, "Oh, she's very shy, very quiet. She should be more confident in her abilities." And then but then I was struggling so much with, so I wasn't an academic, I didn't
Mhm.
go to university. I didn't get a university degree or anything. That's not my strengths. But my parents would try to fight for me to get the support in school, but teachers just saw my older brother, who is very academic. He is, how people say, "Oh, it's not rocket science," when you're trying to explain to people that it's not a difficult subject. Well, that's what he does. He does rocket science. He's a
Wow.
very clever person. And teachers thought my parents were looking at my brother and saying, well, trying to, I don't know, compare the two of us and think I should be as smart as he is, and I should be excelling like that. And the teachers were like, "Oh, it's unfair for you to compare the two of them. Katie just clearly isn't as bright as your son." And I think that's so difficult for my mum and dad, because that's not at all what they were doing. They saw that I was struggling with reading and writing and spelling, and they just wanted to get me the support. I'd like to think school is better nowadays, but I'm not sure if that is the case.
I'd like to think so too, but I've not been out that long in the grand scheme of things. I've only been out, I graduated in like 2017, so it's not been too long. But I really hope that things are changing. Obviously, you were masking quite a lot in your childhood. Um, do you find yourself still masking even now that you've fully embraced your identity?
Yeah, I think sadly we still live in a society that there's a lot of misinformation and stigma, and um, I don't ever want to it seem like I'm saying, non-autistic people, they're so bad because they don't understand and it's their fault. I think we are a creature of our society. We've all grown up being fed this negative stereotype of what autism is. And we've got a lot of work to do to undo that and to spread like better awareness, to give people a better understanding of what it actually means to be autistic. And there's not just one way, as the saying goes, once you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. I've heard many times that, "Oh, you don't look autistic," or, "Huh, I thought autistic people were geniuses," or like, Rain Man or something like that. And that's that's one portrayal of an autistic person. I don't always know how people are going to react when I say I'm autistic. Most of the time it's positive, but sometimes it isn't, and I I want to protect my own well-being. So sometimes I don't always volunteer that information up front because I'm not sure how people are going to react. But I hope so by talking about it more, we start to promote better understanding.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And even with people who you've already told you're autistic, like for me, um, if I'm out with friends who kind of know I'm autistic, but then we're not like super close, I will still maybe not let on that I'm getting overwhelmed and try and like mask. Even though I know it would be totally fine if I didn't, I just feel like I want to just be able to be like how they are, and I don't want to cause any problems. Are you sort of similar sometimes?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I'm a lot better at advocating for myself now, and knowing that the world won't end if I speak up, if I'm finding something difficult, for example. But I've had decades of me pretending to try to fit into societal's mold, and that can't all just be undone in the space of a few years. It's a work in progress. And also I'm still, I guess, finding out things about me. I don't know if that'll ever change. So it's been about 5 years since I, accepted that I'm autistic, and I was going to embrace it. I'm going to learn more about myself, and I'm going to try to unmask. But I'm still finding out things about myself, and that's why I love talking to people and love talking to different autistic people, because I listen to their experiences, and sometimes I can't relate, but a lot of time I can, and I'll listen to someone talking about something and go, I'm like, oh, I do that. That's why I do that. So yeah, I think it's a process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge process. I'm still learning about myself all the time. I don't think it will ever. I don't think we'll ever stop learning about ourselves, but I think that's a good thing. In your TED talk, you said that because you were quiet and well behaved, teachers wouldn't intervene. Obviously, we've touched on this as well. How do you think the educational system in Scotland needs to change so that autistic young people can be better supported in school?
Such a big question.
Yeah.
um, I I don't know much about the training teachers get, but I think we could all benefit from more training, and primarily by people with lived experience
Mhm.
of autism. Um, I I remember when I started Autistic Flair and I started posting about autism online, one of my friends who's a teacher messaged me and said, "Oh my goodness, I had no idea about any of this." And she says, "It's made me think a lot about my teaching, what goes on in my classroom in my schools." And she was like, "Thank you." But and she was expressing she's been scared to open up about it because she's scared of saying the wrong thing. She doesn't want to offend people. She doesn't want to
Mhm.
make it worse. She doesn't know what language to use because, if you're to type autism into Google, you'll get 10, I don't know, tens of different ways of how to talk about it and which one's the right one. And I think we should be giving teachers the tools to help them navigate
Mhm.
this. And I think there has been some training in the past. I think it's probably been based on autism experts, so people who don't have lived experience but have maybe studied
Mhm.
autism and neurodiversity. But I think it's really valuable to hear from people who have lived it themselves, and so we can learn from experience.
Mhm.
So I think a great place to start would be to get more people, more autistic people, coming into schools and working with teachers, giving them the tools on how they can support their autistic pupils.
Mhm. Yeah, that'd be great. That's something I'm really keen that happens in the future. I think it's super
Mhm.
important for teachers to get that training, so that autistic young people can be supported, and especially with autistic young people who are sort of masking quite a lot because, like for me in school, you could totally tell because I wasn't talking to any of my peers, but then at home in my safe space. Um, My parents didn't pick up anything, like and I don't blame them at all because I was just me at home, and it was school where I was really having that social struggle, and so it's
Mm.
like, it'd be good if they could, have training on identifying that sort of thing when at home, your parents might not be able to pick up on that at all. Um,
Yeah, totally. And
yeah.
also, th- the science kind of shows that autism is likely
Mhm,
genetic. And so, like with my parents, they, I'd probably say they're both autistic, and I don't like to
mhm.
just diagnose people off the fly, but obviously I lived with them for about 20 years,
Yeah.
and I can see a lot of autistic traits and behaviors in them, which I've told them, and they agree that's probably the case. So they probably looked at some of my behaviors and go, "Oh, that's normal because I do
Yeah.
that." And it's just, again, since I've been talking about it more and more, they've looked inwards and gone, "Huh, maybe we didn't." It wasn't so obvious to us, is because we could relate to a lot of what I was going through earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same with my mum. She's been saying, "Oh, maybe I'm autistic as well," because she'll look at my traits and then I'll talk about it more since I've been diagnosed, and she's like, "I'm like that too."
Yeah,
So I think it is that element as well of the parents not recognizing it because they're also potentially neurodivergent. Um, I'd also say in schools, I think seeing like PSE class and stuff, I really think they should teach young people about neurodivergence because I didn't get um, any classes on it, but I feel like I would have been able to identify myself like really quickly if they'd just done a PSE class on it. And we learn about all sorts of stuff in PSE. I feel like they could just they teach about mental health and stuff. I feel like they could just fit a wee neurodivergence course in there, and it'd be really beneficial.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned. So I've been out of school 15 years,
Hmm.
and so I can't remember a lot about it. I think I've blanked a lot of it out. But when you say PSC, all I can remember is us. Basically, we watched films a lot, and they
Hmm.
were like, "Oh, it's learning." I don't really know. I think it was just a way of occupying us for an hour or so. They would just put a film on and remember. So I can't actually remember a lot of valuable learnings in that class. Again, I hope that's changed since I left
Hmm.
school. But yeah, I totally agree. I think it would be good to learn about neurodivergence. Like you get religious studies at school.
Yes.
I think and I think that's so important, learning about different cultures. Why are we not learning about different neurotypes?
Hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Absolutely. And you were even saying earlier, young people can be really mean sometimes. But I feel like if they actually realize people are different from you and there might be a reason for it, and that's totally okay, I feel like people would have been nicer. And young people might
Yeah.
be more able to accept people who are different rather than just like bullying them. So I think it's super
Yeah,
important.
100%.
Yeah. Autistic people often have a spiky profile where a person might perform very highly in some areas and then struggle in others. What does your spiky profile look like?
Um, my Psyche profile. So I can quite confidently get up on a stage and speak in front of hundreds of people.
Mhm.
I'm quite content doing that. But making chit chat with people can be really overwhelming. I feel comfortable with you because we've known each other for a wee while now, and we've got this shared interest.
Yeah.
So that relaxes me already. But just making chit chat with people I don't really know, and you're having to not only think about what I'm saying and what they're saying, I'm also having to think about my facial expressions, making sure I'm not staring at them or not looking off into space because I might look like I'm bored. I have to make sure my face is doing the right things, and then also with them, I have to be paying attention to their facial expressions, their gestures, their tone of voice. It's just a lot. So I find something like chit chat quite difficult.
Mhm.
And then um, so if we look at writing, so I spent a few years working for some like newspaper publishers, and I've had countless stories published in papers. Some would say I'm quite good at writing, but my spelling is awful. I remember getting a test done when I was when I was leaving school, so around by 15, I had the spelling age of like a 8 or 9-year-old.
Mhm.
Um, I think this is down to my dyslexia. So yeah, I can write pretty well, but my spelling is awful. I rely on autocorrect a lot, and a lot of the time, even autocorrect doesn't know what I'm trying to spell. So it's about typing words into Google and trying to find the right spelling for things. There are some extremes with my my skill set. When people work with me, they are looking for someone who excels in one particular area. And I do excel in some areas, and that's why that's why I get work, and that's why they value me. And then you get people who are all rounders, and that can be really valuable as well. I think it's great when you can get a team made up of all different skill sets, and see the value in that.
Yeah.
What about yourself?
For me, I mean, I'm the same with the chit chat sort of thing. Obviously, struggling a lot socially. It's more group conversations though. So one to one, there's a rhythm to it. You know, there's like back and forth. But in group conversations, I never want to just interrupt and say something. But it feels like there's never any space to just like talk. And so that's like the thing when I was mute. I would always have things in my head to say, and then there would be no space to say them. And I don't know, it just sort of escalated from there. So groups is really hard for me. In terms of like academics, writing and English has always been my really strong suit. But then maths I just couldn't do it. I have to count on my fingers even, you know, I really struggle. And I think I used to be really embarrassed by it. I was like, why can't I do maths, but I can do all the other sort of subjects? Like, why is it so hard? But I think it might have been I've recently learned of dyscalculia, which is like sort of like dyslexia, but for numbers, I guess. So I think it's possible I might have that, but I have no idea. But yeah, maths has always been super hard.
Yeah. I always struggled with maths as well. I remember sitting in maths class, and people on my table, when we were doing fractions, they would do races. So, we would get a list of, say, like 20 fractions to do, and then they would race each other to see if who would get through it quickest. And I remember sitting there, and I wasn't part of this group because obviously I had no friends, but I was sitting on the same table as them so I could listen in, and they were doing these races, and I was thinking, and I tried to do it with them, but I couldn't keep up. I was like, how are their brains computing all this so quickly? And I just couldn't get my head around the numbers. And yeah, I've totally heard of dyscalculia, but also dyslexic people can also struggle with numbers as well. But I haven't like studied all this like properly, so I'm not sure what the differences are. But yeah, I can relate to.
Yeah, I dropped out of higher maths because I just could not deal with it. I did the prelim and I think I like failed it, and then I was like, oh, I'd studied hard for it as well. I just couldn't. My brain just doesn't work in numbers very well.
Yeah. I hate exams. I hate that it's pretty much a memory test.
Yeah, I know.
And some people are great at that, and I'm pleased for them, like deep down. But yeah, it's just not. It wasn't the right journey for me to get into a certain career.
Yeah. One other thing I would say about Spiky profile, because I think it's one of the main things for me, is spatial awareness and sense of direction. Like I will walk to a building and then I'll go in and I'll have an appointment or something, and I'll walk out and I won't have any idea what way I came from. Like I just don't have any sense of direction. I'll just walk the wrong way. My husband has to like show me where to go half the time. I just follow him or use Google Maps, and I'll be walking along the street with my phone like this. Genuinely, I just have zero sense of direction. It's actually really bad. It's why I don't drive as well. The spatial awareness thing and the sense of direction. It's not a good combo.
Yeah, I can completely relate to that. I have lived in Aberdeen my whole life, so I'm 30 soon. Lived here 30 years, and I still use Google Maps pretty much every time I leave the house because I will get lost. I will go down the wrong way. I will get confused, and I will be late to things. And yeah, I completely relate to that. And I also have a talent for tripping over my own feet, and I use a bottle like this, don't know if you can see that, to drink water from,
Yeah.
because if I just use a glass like a normal person, it will manage to get down my top. And yeah,
Yeah, I'm constantly getting bruises and stuff, so I just walk into door frames. Like, I've been living in this house 2 years, and I'll still just, like, misjudge when the door is and, like, hurt my shoulder or my knee or something. It's really, it's really funny, but, you know, it's just one of the things, about being autistic, for me. I was wondering, do you drive at all?
I do. I do.
Yeah.
I've curbed many wheels, but thankfully I've got no bad, really bad damage from that. Yeah, my spatial awareness isn't great, but I now have a car with like parking sensors. That's been a game changer for me.
Oh, yeah, cool. When cars are coming, I can't tell how fast they're coming at me when I'm driving, and it's the spatial awareness thing. I've not got a good sense of what's around me, so, like, at roundabouts and stuff, I'm not it's just, like, quite challenging. But it's interesting to hear that you drive as well. I think I might be able to do it in the future, but it'll take a lot of extra, lessons. I do have my license, but I'm too scared to drive
Oh,
because of
I
my
see.
spatial
Okay,
awareness stuff,
so
yeah.
my dad was a police officer, so he took me out a lot when I was learning, and so he was pretty comfortable going out with me and giving me extra lessons. And then when I did finally get around to sitting my tests, I failed 3 times before I passed.
Me too.
So yeah, it took me maybe a bit longer than the average person, but yeah, I got there in the end.
You have previously spoken about the low employment rates for autistic people and how you felt that you thrived in lockdown because you could finally control your own work environment and work from home. How do you feel that you could have been better supported in previous employment, and what adjustments do you benefit from in workplace setting?
Yeah, remote working was an absolute game changer
Mhm.
because I could finally control my environment. So before that, I was going to shared office places, where there's often like fluorescent lighting and lots of background noise, and also I was having to deal with, like commuting to work during rush hour. So even before I got into this really busy noisy office, I was kind of disorientated and a bit stressed from having to deal with like traffic and crowds of people. So being able to remote work, suddenly I was working in an environment I was comfortable in. I could switch off all the lights. So normally unless I'm on camera, I'll have like the curtains closed and I'm like super cozy and comfortable. I don't have to wear shirts and like
Mhm.
smart trousers. I could just wear comfortable clothing, and it just feels like a weight is lifted from my shoulders and I can focus and get on with my work. And like I recognize that sometimes you do have to be in the office, and it is good to come in sometimes for like team meetings, and sometimes you benefit from being face to face with people. So things that to allow me to work while in an office, I think if you can allow people to adjust the lighting to suit them, like a lot of office has natural light coming in. You don't also need on top of that the
Yeah.
horrible fluorescent lighting. Being able to put on noise cancelling headphones or putting in earplugs so you can reduce the background noise, all the things you're processing. Um, I've known some workplaces to have cards, and one side is red, one side is green. So if you're focused on a task, you could have your card is red, so people know not to approach you. Obviously, unless it's like emergency.
Yeah.
But like if you see them with a red card, they are focusing. Do not disturb them. And
Mm-hmm.
having quiet areas in the office as well, it can be such a game changer. Because so when I worked in the city centre, I couldn't go home at lunchtime, it would take too long. So my options were to eat at my desk, where the rest of my team are sometimes still working. So people
Mm-hmm.
would bother you and ask you work related stuff on your lunch break, which isn't ideal for relaxing and switching off. Or I could go to one of the shared kitchens, and again, there was like a lot of people, a lot of noise, and I'm trying to decompress, but I can't relax because there's all this happening. Or I could go outside. And I live in the northeast of Scotland. Most of the time it's raining, it's cold, and it's wet. And so, like, sometimes it was nice to go out for a walk, but I wanted to eat my lunch in peace. So there wasn't a lot of options for me. And if there had been a dedicated room where you could go in and just be quiet, and you could either read a book in silence or just listen to a podcast, something, that would have made such a difference.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I think those sort of things would be so beneficial, especially having a room to go to if you are feeling overwhelmed, um, and just not feeling guilty about going there, making sure the management's telling you it's okay, go there whenever you need to, it's totally fine. I think that's one of the main things as well, making sure, because it's fine having those things there, but I think it's an even bigger job to make sure the autistic person feels like they're not gonna be judged for using those adjustments and using those things that are supposed to benefit them.
Yeah, for sure. Because if I look back to early in my career, if I was to ask for an adjustment, I I was just told no. I remember in one of my roles, I also asked if I could maybe change my working hours, so just slightly, so I could avoid rush hour.
Mm-hmm.
And because I looked at my job, I was like, well, I'm no longer client facing, and there's no really strict time deadlines for my role as well. Um, so I was like, oh, there's actually no reason for me having to come in at the busiest times and leaving at the busiest times. I could maybe ask if I could start a bit earlier or start a bit later. And my manager just flat refused. And I also asked about, oh, could I maybe work from home 1 or 2 days a week? Flat refused. And he said to me, and I'm quoting him, if I have to be here between the hours of 9 to 5, so do you. If I
Mm-hmm.
have to work in the office, so do you. And he's like, in his view, he couldn't even comprehend, like, maybe looking at adjusting things for the betterment of my well-being. And also, like, if I'm happy, I'm more productive, and he benefits from that as well. But he couldn't, I don't think he could compute that. He couldn't understand the benefits of meeting me halfway here. um Now I feel like it would be, people are more aware of adjustments, and people,
Mm-hmm.
more recently when I've been employed, and I've asked for adjustments, they've taken it very seriously, and they've done their best to meet my requests. And if it is possible, they've given it to me. Yeah, I remember at the start of my career, just it wasn't even a conversation to be had.
Yeah, and that's why working from home is so helpful for both myself and you.
Mm,
It's interesting you say lockdown helped you with being able to work from home and stuff, because it was the same thing for me. I was still in university, but I was sort of doing average in university. I wasn't really socializing much. I was just going to my classes, doing the in-person exams. But as soon as things moved to online, all my grades just shot up because I was in such a more comfortable environment. And it's like the last year of uni was by far my best grades I'd had, and like the half of the year before that as well. And it was just interesting to see how that small change of being able to do everything from home and being in a comfortable environment can really just help people thrive.
Yeah, totally. I I've spoken to loads of people and they talked about how much of a struggle lockdown was for them, and I could see some of my family members really struggling during that time, and I really feel for them. And obviously, we lost a lot of people to that illness, but just on a personal perspective, it was it helped me a lot discover things about myself, and being able to work from home, I felt my well-being was it was so good, it was so good
Mhm.
for me, and it helped me discover what I needed to help me be more productive and more happy. And yeah, it was a strange time. It was a strange time.
Mhm.
Did you did you ever feel guilty that you were like thriving during lockdown, or were you just
Yeah.
kind of yeah?
Oh, yeah, like, in lockdown, I'd never been so productive in my life. I was genuinely I had, like, the best routine I've ever had, because there wasn't anything else going on. So I had, like, an amazing routine. I wrote an entire book in, like, 4 months
Oh my
because I
goodness.
had this routine and I was studying.
I think it's maybe taught us both, helped us discover things about ourselves, which has helped us moving forward.
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think also the thing about working from home is if I work from home all day, in the evening, I've still got a lot of energy to go and do something I enjoy, like go play badminton or go out with my husband somewhere or do something nice. Whereas if I go for a day in person, I'll come home and Stephen, my husband, he literally knows, don't ask her to do anything if she's been working in person because I will just be completely exhausted and I just need to rest and not really cook or do anything. I'll need a lot more support in the evenings if I've been working all day, and I think it gives you so much more quality of life when you're not so exhausted coming home from a working day, and you
Hmm.
actually have the energy to go and enjoy yourself.
Totally. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that.
Mhm. Okay, so still on lockdown, you started up your own business during lockdown, Autistic Flair. What inspired you to start it up, and how's the journey been for you?
um, so yeah, during lockdown, I was for a time I was furloughed. So I had all this spare time on my hand. And the job I was in, it was in marketing. And I was so keen to progress and to work my way up the ladder. And my manager at the time was like, I love your enthusiasm, but you have to calm down. Like things will come with time. And I was I was furloughed and I had all this time in my hands. And I said, well, I want to see if I can do something myself. And at this time, this was when I was starting to explore my autistic identity, and I was finding great support in the autistic community. And I was finding there was loads of people like me who had believed autism was a shameful thing about themselves, and they were trying to unlearn this. And I saw an opportunity that um, there should be better support for autistic people, and also there should be better resources for organizations who either employ autistic people, or I guess just people who live or work or anything anything related to autistic people. And there didn't seem to be a lot of autistic led organizations providing these resources and support.
Mhm.
So I had the idea to get involved with that myself. I managed to get onto an innovation program with Robert Gordon's University in Aberdeen, and they invited entrepreneurs with this ideas for business, and it could just be a concept. And they had it was maybe a 12-week long course on helping us make this business idea a reality. So I applied for it, pitching this idea of, I guess, coaching individuals and businesses on making workplaces more inclusive, or also helping autistic individuals explore their artistic identity. And so I went through that process, and it was fantastic. If anyone in Aberdeen or Scotland who have this idea, I would totally recommend checking out their program. They do it every year. And it gave me the confidence that, oh, I could actually be a business owner. I could actually make this happen. And it was from that led me to actually making Autistic Flair a business. And it's led to me working on projects like the Embrace Autism project with NAS and Autistic Knowledge Development. I've gone on to deliver keynote talks on autism and neurodiversity. Yeah, I still can't quite believe it's happened.
What an amazing story, though.
It wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for other autistic people who talked about their journey online. Because I remember I grew up not knowing one single autistic person, and I probably, thinking back, of course I've probably met lots of autistic people along the years, but I couldn't think of one openly, someone who was open about their autism. And when I decided, right, I can't keep running from this, I need to understand this part of my identity. I remember going on social media in search of people like me, and I found people who not only just openly talked about it, but they celebrated this part of themselves. And it really helped me see that it wasn't something shameful. It was just one of the things about me. And it was them that gave me the confidence to talk about it myself, and to later go on to create Autistic Flair. And for anyone who hasn't heard of Autistic Flair, I suggest they look it up on Instagram. It started as almost like a personal blog, where I shared my personal experiences growing up autistic, but it evolved to me sharing lots of different autistic voices. And so I reached out to other creators asking if I could share their stories and experiences on my page, and they agreed, and we've now shared hundreds. And it's just a wonderful way to learn and explore what it means to be autistic. But yeah, I could have done it if it hadn't been for the autistic community I found on Instagram.
Yes, I would also recommend anyone listening, please look at Autistic Flair's Instagram. It's great. But yeah, looking at autistic people online was hugely beneficial for myself. So, especially people like diagnosed and stuff, you get to see people with similar experiences to you, rather than just reading stuff online from experts. It's great to hear from people with lived experience, for sure. You've achieved a lot so far with Autistic Flair. What are your professional goals for the future?
I want to help more people and more organizations. I want to inspire change and build understanding on what it means to be autistic. Last month, I delivered a keynote talk to NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde. It was at one of their conferences for people managers, and so it was to about 300 staff members, and I also was given the opportunity to speak on a panel as part of the conference, and I absolutely loved it. And I'd love to do more of that. I'd love to get involved with more speaking opportunities, more training, and connect with even more people in the community as well. So that's what I've set my sights on for sure. And more stuff about the Embrace Autism program. I'm loving being part of that. For anyone who doesn't know, it's a program for newly diagnosed autistic adults, giving them the space to connect with other autistic adults and to explore what it means to be autistic. We run 6 sessions on all about autism, from what is autism to information on reasonable adjustments, and also talking about relationships and intersectionality. And I've loved being part of it. We're both part of this program, and I just this week we've launched another session. So I've been facilitating the session. I'll be doing that for 6 weeks. Loved getting involved with that, and also part of it, we have a private Facebook group where people can continue their peer support and connect with one another. It's been amazing being part of that. I'd love to do even more work on this.
Yeah, the Embrace Autism project is just fantastic. I'm really proud to be part of it as well. I think it's one of my favourite things I get to do in this job. So it's great. Who is the most influential person in your life who helped you become who you are today?
I don't probably have one person. I am very lucky to have supportive family members. My husband is super supportive of who I am, and as are my parents and my brother and my auntie and my grandparents. I'm very lucky in that respect. But again, I would just like to say, like, the other people in the autistic community, they've been people that have given me the strength to open up about this, and without them, Autistic Flair wouldn't exist, and I'd probably still be working in marketing in a totally unrelated field. So yeah, I'm very thankful that I found the autistic community online.
I know that you are an avid reader, just like myself. Would you mind recommending some books that have been written by autistic people, or some fictional books that portray autistic characters?
Yes. I have recently read Ellie Middleton's book. I think it's called Unmasked, and she's just got a new book that's been released today. So her first book, it was kind of delving into what is autism, ADHD, and other neurodivergences. And then this new book that she's released, which I haven't read, but I'm sure it'll be brilliant, is about how to be you, and it's kind of celebrating these neurodivergent identities, and instead of learning to mask it, she's trying to encourage people to embrace it. There's also a book I read a long time ago now, but it's called, just a second, it's my book list. It's called Odd Girl Out.
Oh yeah,
And
I heard of that one.
It's about I would say lady in her 40s, I think, a writer discovering that she's autistic later in life, and it's about her coming to terms with this and discovering this autistic identity of hers. I remember really enjoying it because it wasn't like overly, like, it wasn't really, really positive or really, really negative. It was just really real.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that. Yeah, and Dr. Nick Walker, he has he's wrote a book compiling all his essays on the neurodiversity movement and the neurodiversity paradigm. It's neuroqueer do you say that word? Anyway, look up Dr. Nick Walker on Facebook. It's a brilliant overview of neurodiversity, and it's backed up by lived experience and research. It's super good.
Cool. That's super. I don't think I've read any of those, and I've got a big collection of autism books behind me on my bookshelf, so I'll definitely look them up for sure. What are your preferred ways to stim, and could you recommend any fidget toys?
So the whole time we've been speaking, I've been using one of these. Don't know if you can see that. It's a acupuncture ring, they call it. Is super cheap. I think I bought a whole pack of these for like £1 off of Amazon, and it's really great for people who like, pick their skin or bite their nails. It feels a bit spiky. You can roll it off in your hand. It's completely silent. And yeah, you can do it with one hand as well, which I love. I just basically do that all the time. They come in a range of different colors. I like that for doing like when I'm having meetings or chats, because it's not too distracting. It doesn't make a noise. Again, distracting people. And it's really easy to carry about with me because I can just wear it like a ring. When I'm alone in my house, I'm one of these annoying people who I burst into song, but sometimes it's not a song, it's just a sound that I've picked up, probably from watching too many TikToks or Instagram reels, and I've got this noise or sound in my head, and I just like to repeat it, like a vocal stim. But yeah, that I purely do that in the comfort of my own home.
I constantly hum songs, and I find it really difficult to not, and then I don't realize I've done it. So in school, I would constantly get into trouble because I'd be humming a song, and then the teachers would be like, "Who's humming? Who's humming? Who's singing?" And then I wouldn't realize I'm doing it, so then I wouldn't say it was me, and I'd just keep going.
Oh,
I
that's
used
so
to get in so
funny.
much trouble for that. Yeah, but it's still something
Oh,
I do all the time. Just constantly. There's a song that I'm singing. What is your favorite thing about yourself?
it's something I love and hate about myself. Once I've got an idea in my head, I will run with it. And if I decide to do something, I will put my all into it. I think it stems back to, as a child, you're always told to try your best. And as a literal thinker, I took that very literally. And so I give things my 100%. For example, if I am writing training for something, I will start researching it and writing, and hours go by and I don't realize it. And then all of a sudden my husband's coming home from work and he's like, "Oh, how you doing?" I'm like, "Why are you home early?" "Oh no, it's been 8 hours since I sat down here." And yeah, it's amazing that I can have that focus and I can get so passionate about things, but then I sometimes don't care for myself very well, and I will I won't take enough breaks. I will totally burn myself out doing that. But I think the positives outweigh the negatives there, and I think it is amazing that I can have this extreme motivation and determination.
I have the same sort of problem or strength combo with that. I used to focus on something for so long, wouldn't recognize how much time's passing, and then forget to eat or drink for hours and hours. But I'm much better at trying to remember and take breaks and remember to actually feed myself and make sure I'm drinking enough. But it does take time to sort of make that shift in your brain. Like, you have to go away from what you're passionate about and what you're fixated on to go and make sure you're all right and look after yourself. It's a balance. It's quite difficult to
Totally.
do. So if you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice, what would it be?
I would say stop doing what you think you should be doing and actually do what you want to do. I spent a lot of years feeling isolated and alone and weird and like I just didn't fit in. I didn't even really know what I liked to do and like what my interest. Am I doing them because I actually enjoy it, or is it something that I feel like I should be doing because that's what everyone else is interested in? And it's taken me many years to actually discover who I am and what I like. And yeah, I wish I had discovered that a lot younger. Even like when people were asked about my hobbies, and I've tried loads of different things, but so I've played in bands and orchestras. I joined a netball team, took up drawing, joined a musical theatre group, and performed in loads of shows. I've done every hobby under the sun, it feels like, but I never connected with people, and these things tended to just exhaust me. I didn't leave these things feeling happy and content. It was more exhausted, and yeah, it was like I had to force myself to do these things. And it's taken me a while, to step back and actually figure out what I actually like, and doing things because it's something I want to do, not things I should.
What is the most important lesson you've learned in your life? And I realise it might be what you've just said, pretty much.
Important lesson. If someone is mean to you, it says more about them than it does about me. Hurt people. I can't control how someone feels or behaves, but I can control how I react. So yeah, I used to really other people's actions and feelings would really affect me, and I'm learning to not do that. It's hard.
Mhm.
I feel a lot of feelings, but I am learning to, put my own first and just remember that we all have problems. We're all flawed people, and try not to focus on others' opinions and actions.
Final question. What does being autistic mean to you?
I describe growing up autistic as learning to act in a play with no script, or playing a board game without any instructions, and I'm the only one without the script or the instructions. It sounds like I'm kind of improvising my whole life. But it also means finding joy in the simplest and littlest things in life. I wake up excited to eat the same breakfast as I've ate for the last 8 years. I am one of these people that does a happy dance when I eat something that's delicious. I get great joy of coming home and getting into my like comfy clothes, and it feels like I'm getting this hug, and I can watch the same television program over and over and over again and still feel joyful about it because it's comforting and it's predictable. And before, I would maybe beat myself up about it because this is maybe weird behavior, but it brings me joy and comfort, and that's okay. And yeah, autism is about finding joy in the little things in life.
Oh, that's a lovely way of putting it. Yeah, absolutely. That's all of the questions I have for you. Thank you so much for coming. It's been a great chat, and it's been great having you. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been good.